The crystalline spires of Lifea pierced the lavender sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces refracting the dual sun's light in mesmerizing patterns. Rihanna, guardian of the crystal forest, watched through narrowed eyes as the human transport ship descended through the atmosphere, its metal hull looking grossly out of place among the natural crystal formations. Her iridescent scales shifted colors with her agitation, cycling through deep purples and blues. The Lemurian High Council's decision to allow a human scientist access to their sacred forests was controversial, but what troubled her more was the timing. The crystal growths had been showing signs of disturbance lately, patterns she'd never seen in her centuries of guardianship. The ship landed with a soft hiss of hydraulics, and Rihanna straightened her ceremonial robes, adorned with crystal shards that sang softly with each movement. The ship's door opened, revealing Dr. Nathan Reed, Earth's foremost expert in crystalline biology. He was taller than she expected, with dark skin and intelligent eyes that immediately began taking in every detail of his surroundings. "Welcome to Lifea," Rihanna said formally, her translator crystal pulsing with each word. "I trust your journey was uneventful?" Nathan stepped onto the crystal platform, his specialized boots designed not to damage the delicate surface. "Thank you, Guardian Rihanna. The journey was fascinating. I've never seen anything like your planet's crystal formations from orbit." "And you won't see anything like them up close either," she replied curtly. "Your access is strictly limited to the outer zones. The sacred heart of the forest remains forbidden to outsiders." Instead of showing offense at her tone, Nathan's eyes lit up with genuine curiosity. "The outer zones will provide more than enough data for my initial research. I'm particularly interested in the crystal's bioelectric properties, the way they seem to communicate with each other." Rihanna's scales rippled with surprise. Most visitors focused on the crystal's beauty or potential value. Few understood their true nature as living entities. "Follow me," she said, leading him toward the research station. "And remember, touch nothing without explicit permission." As they walked, Nathan asked intelligent questions about the crystal ecosystem, showing a depth of preparation that slowly eased some of Rihanna's tension. His genuine respect for the forest was evident, even if his human perspective seemed limited. The research station was a modest structure, grown rather than built, its walls an intricate lattice of living crystal. Inside, Rihanna showed Nathan to his lab space, watching as he carefully unpacked equipment she didn't recognize. "These sensors are designed to measure bioelectric fields without interfering with them," he explained, noticing her scrutiny. "Complete passive observation only." "We'll see," Rihanna replied, but her scales had shifted to a less hostile shade of blue. "The crystals are sensitive to dash." A sudden discordant note cut through the air, making her scales flash alarm red. Nathan looked up sharply. "What was that?" "Disturbance in the forest song," Rihanna said, already moving toward the door. "Stay here." "Wait," Nathan called, grabbing one of his sensors. "If something's affecting the crystal network, my equipment might help identify the cause." Rihanna hesitated, centuries of protective instinct warring with practical necessity. Another discordant note made the decision for her. "Come. But stay close and do exactly as I say." They raced through the crystal corridors, Rihanna's scales providing bioluminescent guidance in the deeper shadows. The discordant notes grew stronger as they approached the border of the forbidden zone. Nathan's sensor beeped urgently. "These readings are off the charts," he muttered. "It's like something's deliberately interfering with the crystal network's natural frequency." Rihanna's scales paled. "Impossible. Only a guardian can influence the network, and even then, only in harmony with its natural rhythms." They rounded a corner and froze. Ahead, a section of crystal wall had been surgically removed, revealing a device embedded deep within the living matrix. Its harsh electronic pulse clashed violently with the forest's natural symphony. "That's Earth tech," Nathan said, his voice tight with anger. "But heavily modified." Someone's trying to force a resonance pattern on the network. Can you disable it? Yes, but we need to be careful. A sudden shutdown could shock the entire system. Nathan moved forward, his hands steady as he examined the device. This is incredibly advanced. Whoever placed this had serious resources and inside knowledge of both Earth technology and Lemurian crystals. Rihanna's scales darkened with realization. The recent disturbances, this isn't the only device, is it? No, Nathan confirmed grimly. This is part of a larger network. Someone's systematically mapping and manipulating your forest's communication patterns. The question is, why? Before Rihanna could respond, a new sound cut through the discord, the distinctive hum of approaching hover drones. Her scales flared warning patterns. We need to go. Now. But the device dash. Leave it. We can't risk being discovered here. Rihanna grabbed Nathan's arm, pulling him into a side passage as security drones swept past their hiding place. In the close confines of the crystal corridor, Rihanna became acutely aware of Nathan's presence, his controlled breathing, the warmth of his skin under her hand, the way his eyes reflected the bioluminescence of her scales. For the first time, she saw him not as a human intruder, but as a potential ally in protecting her beloved forest. We need somewhere safe to analyze your readings, she whispered. There's a sealed guardian sanctuary nearby. No recording devices, no surveillance. Nathan nodded, trust replacing his earlier scientific detachment. Lead the way. As they moved deeper into the crystal maze, Rihanna realized that generations of isolation had left her people vulnerable. Perhaps it was time to accept that some outsiders could be trusted, that some humans might actually help preserve what they held sacred. She glanced at Nathan, his determined expression illuminated by her bioluminescence, and felt her scales shift to a color she hadn't experienced before. The forest song, even disturbed, seemed to resonate with new possibilities. The guardian sanctuary pulsed with ancient power, its crystalline walls vibrating with frequencies too subtle for human ears to detect. Nathan watched in fascination as Rihanna pressed her palm against a seemingly solid wall, her scales resonating with the crystal until a doorway materialized. The sanctuary exists slightly out of phase with normal space, she explained, ushering him inside. Even our most sophisticated scanning technology can't detect it. The chamber within was breathtaking, a perfect geodesic sphere with faceted walls that seemed to capture and amplify the light from Rihanna's bioluminescent scales. At the center, a crystalline console grew from the floor like a natural formation. Show me what your sensors recorded, Rihanna said, placing her hand on the console. The crystal responded, creating a holographic display that hung in the air between them. Nathan connected his sensor, watching as streams of data filled the display. These interference patterns are incredibly sophisticated. Look at how they're targeting specific frequencies within the crystal network's natural resonance. Rihanna's scales shifted to a troubled gray. These aren't random frequencies. They match the forest's deepest communication channels, the ones we use for storing our most sacred knowledge. Someone's trying to access your historical records? Worse. They're trying to decode the very language of the crystals themselves. Rihanna's voice carried an edge of fear that made Nathan look up sharply. Our entire civilization is built on our ability to communicate with and guide the crystal growth. If others learn to manipulate that connection, they could control the forest, Nathan finished grimly. Or destroy it entirely. A sudden alert from the console made Rihanna's scales flash warning red. More devices are activating. The network is being systematically probed. Her hands moved across the crystal interface, bringing up a map of the forest. Dozens of points pulsed with artificial resonance. This is coordinated, Nathan said, studying the pattern. And look, they're forming a containment grid. Whatever they're planning, they want to make sure they can isolate sections of the network. Rihanna's scales had gone almost white with distress. The sacred heart of the forest, they're going to try to cut it off from the rest of the network. Without that connection, thousands of years of living knowledge could be lost forever. Nathan touched her arm gently, feeling the tremor in her crystalline scales. We won't let that happen. But we need help, this is too big for just us to handle. I can't trust the council, Rihanna said, her scales darkening. These devices required inside access to install. Someone high up had to approve this. Then we trust evidence. Nathan pulled up the sensor data again. Look at these power signatures. They're drawing massive energy from somewhere. If we can track the power source. Rihanna's eyes widened. The maintenance tunnels. They run deep under the forest, carrying power to the environmental control systems. Her hands danced across the console, overlaying a new map. Here, there's an unexplained power drain in Sector 7. Can we access the tunnels without being detected? Yes, but... Rihanna hesitated, her scales shifting through uncertain colors. The tunnels are dangerous for humans. The crystal resonance is much stronger underground. Without proper protection, it could overwhelm your nervous system. Nathan met her gaze steadily. Do you have something that could help? Rihanna touched the crystal shard pendant at her throat, then slowly removed it. This is a Guardian's focus crystal. It helps us filter and control the forest's resonance. She stepped closer, slipping the pendant over his head. It's attuned to my specific frequency, so it should protect you, but... The connection goes both ways. You'll be able to feel what I feel, sense what I sense. It's intimate. The crystal settled against Nathan's chest, warm and alive. Immediately, he gasped as new awareness flooded his consciousness, the pulse of the forest, the song of the crystals, and underneath it all, Rihanna's presence, a shimmer of emotions and sensations he couldn't quite grasp. That's incredible, he breathed. Through the crystal's connection, he felt Rihanna's surprise at his acceptance, her lingering uncertainty about trusting a human with something so sacred. We should go, she said, but her scales had shifted to a new color, one that the crystal told him meant hope mixed with something deeper, something she wasn't ready to acknowledge. The maintenance access is hidden, but not far. As they left the sanctuary, Nathan was acutely aware of both the weight of the crystal against his chest and the weight of Rihanna's trust. The forest song hummed through him, and for the first time, he truly understood what they were fighting to protect, not just a unique ecosystem, but the living heart of an entire civilization. They moved through the crystal corridors in perfect synchronization, the shared resonance allowing them to communicate without words. Through the crystal's connection, Nathan felt Rihanna's growing acceptance of his presence, her surprise at how naturally he adapted to the forest's rhythm. What neither of them expected was how the crystal would begin to attune itself to both of them, creating something entirely new, a harmony between human and Lemurian that had never existed before. As they descended toward the maintenance tunnels, neither spoke of the implications, but both felt the change taking root, as inexorable as crystal growth itself. The maintenance tunnels thrummed with crystal energy, their walls raw and unrefined compared to the carefully cultivated formations above. Nathan felt the difference through Rihanna's focus crystal, these deeper resonances were primal, almost wild. Beside him, Rihanna's scales flickered with tension as they followed the power readings deeper underground. Something's wrong, she whispered, touching a rough crystal wall. The deep resonance is distorted. These crystals are in pain. Through their shared connection, Nathan felt it too, a discord that set his teeth on edge. His sensor confirmed their fears, showing massive energy fluctuations ahead. They rounded a corner and found themselves facing a heavily modified power junction. Earth-made equipment had been grafted onto the living crystal, forcing it to channel energy in unnatural ways. This technology, Nathan examined the setup carefully, it's military grade. Way beyond anything a private corporation could access. He felt Rihanna's spike of alarm through the crystal link. "The trade agreement," she said, scales darkening. "The Council insisted we needed Earth's military protection against Outer Rim pirates. But what if that was just a cover?" A distant hum made them both freeze. Through the crystal's connection, they moved as one into a shadowed alcove just as a patrol of security drones passed by, followed by a figure Nathan recognized with shock, Admiral Thane, Earth's military liaison to Lamaria. "The resonance mapping wasn't just about accessing your records," Nathan whispered as the footsteps faded. "They're weaponizing the crystal network itself." Rihanna's scales flashed danger patterns. The forest's defensive capabilities, if they could control those. They'd have an undetectable weapons platform that could target any point on the planet. The implications hit Nathan hard. And since the crystals are technically alive, no arms treaty would apply, Rihanna finished. "We need to get to the central control room. All power junctions are monitored from there." They moved deeper into the tunnel network, their shared resonance allowing them to sense patrols before they got close. The crystal's connection between them had grown stronger, and Nathan found himself increasingly aware of Rihanna's emotions, her fury at the betrayal, her fear for the forest, and underneath it all, a growing warmth when she looked at him that made his heart race. The central control room was massive, its walls lined with ancient crystal formations that pulsed with power. Banks of modern monitors created a stark contrast, their harsh light reflecting off the natural crystal surfaces. But what caught their attention was the massive holographic display at the center of the room. "That's not just Lamaria," Rihanna breathed, scales pale with shock. "Those are strategic targets across the entire sector. They're planning to use our sacred forest as a weapon against other worlds." Nathan studied the display grimly. The crystal network's natural ability to transmit energy across vast distances, they've found a way to weaponize it. One shot could devastate an entire city, and no one would ever trace it back to Earth. A new voice made them both spin around. "Brilliant deduction, Dr. Reed." Admiral Thane stepped from the shadows, flanked by armed guards. "Though I'd expected you to stick to your assigned research areas. This is a violation of every treaty between our worlds," Rihanna snarled, her scales blazing with fury. "Treaties are for peacetime," Thane replied coldly. "The Outer Rim worlds are arming for war. This facility ensures we strike first, decisively." He nodded to his guards. "Take them. The good doctor's expertise might still be useful, and the Guardian, well, we need someone who can communicate with the crystals." The guards moved forward, but Nathan and Rihanna were already in motion, their movements perfectly synchronized through the crystal's connection. Nathan's sensor, modified on the fly, emitted a pulse that disrupted the guards' targeting systems. Rihanna's scales flashed blinding patterns as she touched the nearest crystal wall, sending a surge of resonant energy through the room. The effect was immediate and devastating. The crystal walls responded to her call, sprouting sharp formations that forced the guards back. But Thane had already slammed his hand down on a control panel. Alarm klaxons blared as emergency barriers began dropping. "You can't stop this," Thane shouted over the chaos. "The project is too far along. The crystals will serve a greater purpose." "The crystals serve life, not death," Rihanna called back, her voice carrying the harmonics of the forest itself. Through their connection, Nathan felt her drawing on deeper powers, ancient resonances that made his borrowed crystal hum with energy. The room's crystals sang in response, their song building to a crescendo that shattered screens and sent equipment sparking. Nathan grabbed Rihanna's hand, feeling power surge between them as the focus crystal synchronized their energies completely. In that moment of perfect harmony, human science and Lemurian crystalcraft merged. Nathan's understanding of wave mechanics combined with Rihanna's instinctive knowledge of crystal resonance, creating something entirely new. The forest's song changed, incorporating elements of both their worlds. The results were beyond anything either of them had imagined. The central control room erupted in chaos as the merged resonance wave expanded outward. Crystal formations grew at impossible speeds, their structures incorporating patterns that had never existed before, perfect mathematical fractals born from the union of human science and Lemurian crystalcraft. Through their shared connection, Nathan and Rhianna felt the change rippling through the entire forest network. Impossible, Thane breathed, staring at his rapidly failing systems. The crystal network is rewriting itself. Every weapon protocol we installed is being overwritten by, what is this? Evolution, Nathan answered, holding Rhianna's hand tighter as power coursed between them. The forest isn't just defending itself, it's adapting. Rhianna's scales shimmered with newfound understanding. The crystals were never meant to be weapons. They're teaching us a new way to communicate, to grow together. But Thane wasn't finished. He pulled out a device that made the focus crystal around Nathan's neck shriek in protest. This facility cost billions. I won't let some misguided romance between a human and an alien ruin everything we've built. He activated the device, and suddenly every crystal in the room began to vibrate at a devastating frequency. Nathan felt Rhianna's pain through their connection as the disruptor attacked the very foundation of her being. The crystal walls started to crack, ancient formations threatening to shatter. Above them, they could feel the forest crying out as the resonance cascade began to tear it apart. If I can't control the network, Thane snarled, no one will. Through their shared agony, Nathan's scientific mind raced. The disruptor was using the same principles they discovered, the merger of human and Lemurian knowledge. But where they had created harmony, Thane was forcing discord. Rhianna, he gasped through the pain. The new growth patterns, they're not just random. They're showing us something. Look. Through their connection, he shared his understanding of the mathematical patterns emerging in the crystal structures. Rhianna's eyes widened as her ancestral knowledge combined with his insights, revealing a solution hidden in plain sight. The forest wants balance, she said, her scales beginning to pulse with a new rhythm. Not control, not weapons, but true synthesis. Together, they pressed their hands against the nearest crystal wall. The focus crystal blazed with light as they poured everything they had into the connection, Nathan's understanding of wave mechanics, Rhianna's deep bond with the forest, and something else that had grown between them, stronger than either of them had expected. The new resonance pattern spread like wildfire through the crystal network. Where Thane's disruptor tried to force destruction, their combined energy encouraged adaptation. The forest responded with explosive creativity, growing new structures that absorbed and transformed the harmful frequencies. Thane's device overloaded in a shower of sparks as the very principles it was based on were transcended by something far more powerful. The Admiral staggered back, watching in disbelief as his weapon systems crashed one by one. The forest remembers, Rhianna announced, her voice carrying harmonics that made the crystals sing. Every attempt to abuse its power, every act of destruction. But it also remembers kindness, curiosity, and genuine desire to understand. The crystal walls pulsed with images, ancient Lemurians learning to communicate with the first growths, the forest's joy at sharing knowledge, and now, a human scientist choosing to protect rather than exploit. The story of two worlds finding harmony instead of conflict. Security forces burst into the room, but froze at the sight before them. The crystal formations had created a living record of Thane's plans, undeniable evidence of the attempted weaponization. More importantly, they showed a new possibility, human science and Lemurian crystalcraft working in perfect sync. Nathan felt Rhianna sway beside him as the power drain took its toll. He caught her, the focus crystal humming contentedly as he held her close. Her scales had shifted to a color he'd never seen before, one that spoke of endings and beginnings, of barriers broken and new paths discovered. The Council will have to acknowledge this, she said softly. Everything is going to change. Change isn't always bad, Nathan replied, feeling the forest song resonating through both of them. The crystal around his neck had permanently altered its frequency, creating a harmony that was uniquely theirs. Above them, through layers of crystal and earth, they felt the forest continuing to grow in new patterns, human precision blending with Lemurian organic flow. It was more than just evidence of what their peoples could achieve together, it was a promise of possibilities neither world had imagined before. 3 months after the incident in the control room, the crystal forest had transformed beyond recognition. The merger of human science and Lemurian crystalcraft had created something entirely new, a hybrid ecosystem that pulsed with previously unknown possibilities. Nathan stood at the observation platform, watching the sunset paint the crystal spires in ethereal colors, while Rihanna's scales shimmed in harmony with the evening light. "The last of Earth's research teams arrives tomorrow," she said, her tail curling around his waist. "The Council's new oversight protocols are strict, but fair. No more secret military projects." Nathan touched the focus crystal that still hung around his neck, feeling the familiar warmth of their connection. "And the weaponization research? Being adapted for peaceful purposes." Rihanna's scales rippled with satisfaction. "The energy transmission principles are revolutionizing sustainable power distribution. 3 outer rim colonies have already requested crystal-based power grids." The forest around them sang with new harmonies. Where once there had been only the pure tones of Lemurian crystal growth, now complex melodies wove through the song, mathematical patterns inspired by human music theory, creating something more beautiful than either civilization had imagined possible. "The old guard is still uncomfortable," Rihanna admitted, her scales showing traces of concern. "Some say we're losing our traditional ways." "Are we?" Nathan asked, turning to face her. Through their crystal bond, he felt her contemplating the question. "No," she finally answered. "We're expanding them. Look." She gestured to where young Lemurian students worked alongside human scientists, their scales glowing with excitement as they discovered new ways to communicate with the crystal network. The forest had become a living laboratory of cooperation. Human technology now worked in harmony with crystal formations rather than trying to dominate them. Rihanna's guardian abilities had evolved too, incorporating scientific principles that made her connection to the forest stronger than ever. "The Council wants to establish similar forests on other worlds," she said, her scales shifting to colors of possibility. "Not as weapons or power sources, but as bridges between civilizations. Each one unique, growing from the combined knowledge of different species." Nathan smiled, feeling the rightness of it through their shared resonance. "Unity through diversity. The forest showed us the way all along." A new crystal formation sprouted nearby, its structure a perfect blend of natural growth and mathematical precision. Through their connection, they both felt the forest's contentment, not just at being protected, but at being truly understood for the first time. Rihanna's scales shifted to the special color that was just for him, the one that spoke of barriers broken and hearts joined. The focus crystal hummed with shared emotion as she leaned against him. "You know, when you first arrived, I was certain you'd destroy everything I held sacred. Instead you helped me see that sacred things don't break when they grow. They become more sacred." Above them, the crystal spires caught the last light of day, refracting it in patterns that had never existed before, human geometry dancing with Lemurian organic flow. The forest song swelled around them, no longer just an ancient melody but a symphony of possibilities. Rihanna touched the focus crystal at Nathan's neck, her scales synchronizing with its pulse. "The old stories say the forest chose its first guardians, teaching them to hear its song." Her eyes met his. "Maybe it chose you too, just in a different way." The crystal's warmth intensified, and through their connection, Nathan felt the truth of it. He had come seeking knowledge and found something far more precious, a way to bridge worlds, to prove that differences could become strengths when approached with an open heart. As night fell, the forest's bioluminescence created new constellations among the crystal spires. Human and Lemurian voices mingled in the research stations below, while the crystal network hummed with discoveries yet to come. The weapon facility had been transformed into a center for peaceful cooperation, its power now turned to healing and growth. Nathan and Rihanna stood together in the gathering dark, their shared resonance adding another harmony to the forest's endless song. Above them, the stars seemed to shine with new possibility, promising not just scientific advancement but something far more important, proof that fear could transform into trust, that different